Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're going to be talking about the DS versus the PSP. Now both of these systems are great, they both have great aspects. We're not going to talk about which is necessarily better, but we're just going to, compare the two. Both of these handhelds have great games, although one prioritizes 3D games more than 2D games, so we'll talk about that later. Either way, I'm going to talk about both systems, talk about their similarities, talk about their differences, and yeah. Either way, enough of this introduction bullshit, let's just get started with the DS. Okay, that commercial was kind of erotic. I don't get why that commercial exists since, Nintendo's kind of advertising the DS towards kids and preteens and stuff like that. I honestly don't get how that makes sense, but either way, onto the DS. Let's talk about it. So the DS released in 2004 and it sold well its first year. It sold about 1 million consoles and it did fairly well. Of course, you could play your DS games, you could play your Game Boy Advance games, although the DS wasn't really meant to be a predecessor to the Game Boy. Although the DS was a lot more better than the Game Boy. I mean, again, you could play both games, DS and Game Boy, you could tell the time, you could chat with people, and I think this goes without saying, but chatting with people on the DS was way ahead of its time. I mean, let's just say you're in the mall and you have your DS and some other kids in the mall and they have their DS. You guys could chat through both of the DSs. Like that was way ahead of its time. I can't say that enough. You could draw pictures, you could text, you could play games with each other. It was, again, way ahead of its time. Then you had the calendar and the watch, although those apps, they don't really count. They're just like, they're just basic console add-ons. But I mean, hey, the Game Boy Advance didn't have it. And let's not also forget, when it came down to the DS, it had 2 screens, which was, again, ahead of its time. With the top screen, you just had the gameplay. With the bottom screen, you could control the gameplay either through your hand or the stylus. Well, I mean, personally, I lost the stylus the first day I got the DS, so I controlled most of the games with my fingers, but either way, fingers are still an option, even though it's not the best. Now, of course, how could we bring up the DS without bringing up the games? Now, the DS had some, I guess, games for the elderly, like Brain Age, but, you also had some cool stuff too, like Mario and Luigi, Mario Kart 7, of course you got your Game Boy Advance games, and with that you got Game Boy Advance Video, you got your Animal Crossing, you got Pokemon Black and White, and of course you got some classics like Super Mario 64, although that game does not control along the DS. And of course you had upgrades like the DSi, the DS XL, although me personally, I still prefer the chunky, large first generation DS because that's just my style and the one I had growing up, so yeah. Now, sort of another weird aspect of the DS, it sort of held Nintendo throughout the GameCube generation because, of course, GameCube games are really expensive today. Let's not forget that the GameCube had low sales when it released back in the early 2000s, so the DS sort of held Nintendo through, I guess, the later half of the GameCube generation since the Game Boy Advance came out in 2001. And I'd say for the most part, Nintendo was at a bad place in the early 2000s. I mean, sure, you had the Game Boy Advance and the DS, but, the GameCube isn't doing so well, and the other console that they had before that was the N64, which, yeah, I think they were still making games for it by 2001. Either way, I think I'm getting away from the main topic of the video. But either way, I'd say for the most part, the DS sold well, it sold millions, it had great games, it sort of held Nintendo through until the Wii came out, and then after that it got some upgrades because of course the DSi, then the DS XL. So I'd say for the most part the DS is overall a great system. Would I recommend it today? Me personally, yeah, I would think so. Maybe you could have some fun with it, or maybe you could get some nostalgic memories from it. I don't know, your choice. Either way, onto the PSP.
New silver PSP, silver slice, you know what I'm saying, stray dog? Football, huh? Getting your pigskin on.
Do I know you?
Looking at a third-string pee-wee punter here, okay? I know something about the old gridiron. Let me jump in there and get a couple snaps. That's cool.
Dude, get your own. The all-new, lighter, slimmer PSP.
Maybe we could just scout some teams later at my place. Use that baby's video out for a guy's night in, huh?
Alright, the PSP. You know, this console is somewhat nostalgic for me. I mean, everybody, at least where I was from back in the day, had a PSP. I mean, the PSP was sort of everything in one. It was a game system, it was sort of an iPod because it had music, it was a DVD player. The PSP sort of had everything. And of course the games, they were basically like PS2 games just on the go. I mean, you had your Grand Theft Auto, and you had your Tony Hawk, you had your Metal Gear, you had Ape Escape, you basically had everything that PS2 offered just on the go. Let's not also forget that the PSP also had internet. And I know I keep on repeating myself, but this was way ahead of its time. I mean, to have internet wherever you went, whether it was outside or whatever, it was like magic back then. I mean, technology back then just hit differently. I mean, I get it, you know, if you're younger, the PSP just looks like junk to you, but believe me, the thing was magical back in the day. Anyway, I feel like I'm getting off the rails. So back to the PSP. When it came down to the internet on the PSP, you could basically download any game, you could download wallpaper, you could download stuff like that. And again, it was just ahead of its time. And I mean, you could download music as well. The PSP is basically future-proof. Like, somebody could come back to the PSP today and still have fun with it. Unfortunately, they can't really download any more games since the PlayStation Store shut down the PSP section, but that is what it is. Alright, so the PSP versus the DS. I feel like at the end of the day, the two systems are just different and they take priorities over different things. For example, the DS, it takes priority over games, you know, backwards compatibility with the Game Boy Advance, although that didn't really last long. But I feel like you can get both things out of both systems. So let's just say you want to watch TV on the PSP, of course you could, you know, download a movie or something. If you want to watch TV on the DS, you have to get your Game Boy video pack, and that's not really good, but you know, still you're watching something, I guess. Let's just say you want to listen to music. Well, of course, you know, you have the music up on your PSP. With the DS, you don't really have that, but you know, it is what it is. The point that I'm getting at, these two systems prioritize different things. You know, like I said earlier, the PSP sort of prioritizes gaming, music, and TV, while the DS mainly focuses on games. The games on the DS aren't even that bad. I mean, sure, you have your shovelware now and then, but I'd say for the most part, the majority of the games on the DS are quality games. But you know what though? If you like this video, like, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, no rushing. Tell me down below, what do you prefer, PSP or DS? Let me know below, and I guess I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Dads, what are you doing here?
We've come for the creature you call Mom!
No! You have a perfect civilization! Why would you want to add a woman to it?